Welcome to Combat Sports Talk, a podcast dedicated to UFC and Bellator discussion, the MMA community, and combat sports in general. I'm your host, Ryan Smith, and joining me this week is the man with the keys to victory, John Keys. What's up, man?
Hey, what's happening? Not only the keys to victory, but I got a fresh cut, too. Ooh.
Oh, very, very nice.
Yeah.
And the coach to the future of MMA, the one and only George G-Money Stallworth. What's up?
Hey, bro, how you doing?
Pretty good. Happy Memorial Day to both of you.
Likewise.
Okay, I'll say good Memorial Day to both of y'all.
It's a solemn day, so it's hard to say Happy Memorial Day, but Merry Memorial Day or Good Memorial Day. I didn't know really what word precedes Memorial Day. I can't just say it's Memorial Day.
Yeah, you can. You can say, hey, it's Memorial Day. Have you had a good one?
Okay.
Which, it was raining today, but, rain don't hurt the military. So that's how it goes.
All right. Did either of you do anything interesting? Grill anything? Do anything besides just stay out of the rain?
Yeah, I grilled. Did my yearly grilling, fajitas, hamburgers, hot dogs. Traditional stuff. Poured a little bit for the homies and my fallen brothers and sisters, and the rest I had for myself. Yeah.
All right, George.
I had work today. I had a couple of classes to teach and some privates. And speaking of interesting day, I'm sitting here right now as my girlfriend is setting her anatomically body parts up just to tease me while we're doing the show. I guess she's trying to make me crack up and laugh.
Wait, what?
Setting up.
So my girlfriend works in, I guess you would call it in the medical field. So part of what she does is she speaks to groups of people about, what would I say? Catheters is her specialty, but with that comes the urology piece of it. And so as a result, she has anatomically correct body parts in order to provide demos. And right now, for my enjoyment, she set those two male and female anatomical body parts up right here. So I'm just to go ahead and make me laugh while we're on the show.
All right.
Okay, so now
it's been an interesting Memorial Day.
Now,
go ahead.
Would you
like to see the body parts?
No.
I've already had that training when I was in the military. Yeah, okay. Because before I went to the Ordnance Corps, they were going to make me a medical specialist, which is the same as a paramedic here in the civilian world. And one thing we had to train to do was catheters and enemas and all that good stuff. So yeah, I'm up to speed. We don't need to see that. We're family friendly.
My wife is a nurse, so if I have any questions, I can just go ask her.
Yeah, and when you were setting that up, I was like, about the performing arts here, or I was like, oh Lord, we're family friendly.
Well, talking about performing arts, there is an art to what we do. It's called podcasting, and the greatest podcaster seems to be a person by the name of Joe Rogan. He is our headliner tonight, so let's get right into it. This is the headliner. This is where we talk about the topics that are making the big waves in the MMA world. And this time, it's the fact that Spotify is paying Joe Rogan an alleged amount of money of $100 million. You got to put your pinky to your mouth when you say it.
That's right. $100 million.
So, UFC commentator Joe Rogan just signed a massive deal with Spotify to take the Joe Rogan Experience, the JRE, all the way to Spotify. The contract could max out at $100 million over a few years. So that is a gigantic sum of money. I would like to just make a fraction of that with Combat Sports Talk. That'd be great.
I mean, I like the Joe Rogan Experience. Don't get me wrong. I've learned so much from that podcast, But $100 million of learning, I don't think they do TED Talks for that much.
Yeah,
okay?
you know, they don't at all. They don't do a season worth of TED Talks for that much. It is an insane amount of money, and that insane amount of money is not lost on Joe Rogan. He says it feels gross. He says that especially given the time that he is signing this contract, while other people are losing their jobs, they're going without, he is basically coming in with a windfall of money, and it's like, that's just not his personality. It's not his persona to feel great about an achievement given the context of everything going on with the coronavirus. So I respect that.
So he's gonna feel bad until he gets that first paycheck.
Well, perhaps, but I'd like to think that Joe Rogan has the humility to know that it's probably not the time that he wants to be driving down the strip in a Bugatti or something.
His new Bugatti.
Let's not do that. Let's just stay at home and be the same.
Well, you can still be humble and still, and your bank account has one small number, but a whole bunch of zeros behind it.
Well, okay? It's possibility versus probability. Well, it's possible, but when you got all them zeros, it becomes very difficult not to get that chin up a little bit.
So okay, okay, go ahead.
Joe wasn't doing too bad to start with. I mean, his podcast alone was raking in what I think like $3 million per year, and that's not even including his probably UFC pay, his shows as a comedian. I mean, so Joe wasn't a pauper before either.
This is true.
So I'm gonna ask this question. So let's just say you wake up tomorrow morning, and you look at your bank account and you're like, oh, look at that. That's $80 million in my bank account. Are you gonna continue to go to work? Are you gonna come in to do your presentation as you always wanted to do your presentation?
Well,
I mean,
Joe has always said,
yeah, like
he's not built like that.
Yeah.
Joe's not here. Okay, I'm here with Ryan and I'm here with George. Okay,
George will not be going to work on Monday morning, Tuesday morning, Wednesday morning, Thursday morning, Friday morning, Saturday, and on Sunday is the Lord's Day, so I was gonna rest anyway.
So what about you, Ryan? Are you gonna do the presentation that you had written out the night before, or are you gonna do the presentation that you written out in your heart?
I have already, whenever we've had the lottery go up to be like the hundreds of millions of dollars, I've played a couple of times, and I've always imagined what I would do if I did win. And I had decided in myself that I was going to go ahead and like finish out some of the work that I had done, because I have just flipped over from I have to do this because I have to now doing this because I want to. And that takes a lot of pressure off. So I would definitely give them some chance to find somebody else. But man, Combat Sports Talk, I mean, it's pretty nice right now, but dude, we would be like a television studio.
Dude, just about any place that I work would become part of Combat Sports Talk Studios and etc. You know what I mean? Like any and everything that I ever wanted to do, all of a sudden, all those businesses are taking over anybody else's business who I was affiliated with.
That's right. So yeah, that's what you would see. If I came into $80 million, you would see this brand freaking everywhere. But so I shout out to Joe Rogan. He has a great show. He has great guests. Yeah. He's well worth the $100 million as long as I'm not paying it. I can't wait to see. He says that nothing's going to change. I'm excited to see what it looks like whenever he gets the mass distribution model that Spotify offers. Let's get into the next segment, which is Finding the Angles. This is Finding the Angles. This is where we look at the headlines that are making waves in the MMA world. And we've got a lot of things to talk about. But what I'm most excited about is what we have on the schedule tonight. And that is, we've got an awesome interview with Arjan Carlos Moreno. And he took some time on Friday to talk to George and I about a whole lot of things. So I want to get to that, but there's a couple of things I want to get to first before we get into that, and then we'll play a clip of the interview, which is in its entirety on YouTube and will be on our website on Tuesday. So let's get into some of these other headlines before we get into the interview. The first one is there is another event coming up for the UFC. It is going to be Woodley versus Burns in Las Vegas. And so the Nevada Commission set a hearing on combat sports return. So that was one of the questions that we had outstanding from last week, is that now that the UFC showed that it is possible to have 3 events in 1 week in Florida, they want to come back to their home base, which is in Las Vegas. And basically, the Nevada State Athletic Commission has been suspending all of the fights until further notice. So they just had a review on Thursday, and they've revealed plans for a meeting on the 27th where they're going to discuss the protocols and what they would take to have to bring back this sport. So that's pretty exciting.
I'm kind of nervous about this. I don't think that we're ready for it. Giving the guidelines, I'm glad the UFC has went out of their way to do what they've done, and they've done a phenomenal job of doing it. This is a next level situation here. I mean, I got questions. Are we going? Is it still going to be the same format? It's just nobody's going to be in the arena. Mm-hmm. It's just going to be the fighters, their corner, and the ref. I don't know.
Well, here's the thing. They've enhanced the protocol. So the lessons that they've learned from Florida, they are enhancing it so they can get it approved in Nevada. And so the short version is fighters will be tested when they arrive at the athlete's hotel, and they will remain isolated pending results. That should resolve what happened with Jacare Souza. Fighters will be tested a second time after weigh-ins, and then they will remain isolated pending those results. So if they're able to get through the first gate, they'll get weighed in. If they're able to get through the second gate, they'll be able to fight. Fighters and their teams must have the Nevada Athletic Commission approval to leave the athlete hotel during periods of isolation. So they won't be able to leave the hotel once they're there, and they're going to have to get special approval to be able to leave. And then fighters and their teams must avoid physical contact with non-camp members during isolation. So if you're not part of this camp, you're not that crew of people, then you can't go and have contact with another group because you could be risking potentially catching COVID-19 because everyone's in isolation while the testing is being done and results are being found. So it's a little bit tighter than it was in Florida, and that's what they're thinking will help them control the risk of infection.
Okay, well, I like that type of paranoia.
I'm wondering, why don't they test the fighters prior to them even getting on the plane? It's like, why, if you can have knowledge of someone prior to them flying out, that gives you a little bit more leeway in finding a replacement if you need to. That saves somebody a trip if they don't need to, and they're at home where they can go ahead and seek medical attention as appropriate. I'm just wondering what the reasoning behind that is. It more cost effective not to?
Well, because if you test somebody before they leave, let's say for instance they leave, they're at their place, you test them there. Once they get on that airplane, they have just entered into a closed environment with other people on the airplane where they could be exposed. Right. So you're still going to have to test them, even if they...
No, I'm not saying don't test them when they get there. I'm saying if you want to go stringent, if you think about it this way, Jacare Souza, if he had been tested before he got on the plane, we would have known that days in advance. There would have been no way in with him. We could have found Uriah Hall a replacement fight already. You get what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. You still, the testing that you're already putting in place still remains. As an additional precaution now, we're also going to test you prior to you leaving your own home.
I think it's cost at that point that they're not one to incur those costs, because technically, where are you going to go? Like, how are you going to orchestrate that for, if you have 10 fights on the card, or let's say 12 fights on the card, that's 24 camps. That's, let's say 4 people, 5 people in the camp. You ever heard of this
thing called USADA?
USADA tests one person.
Right, but they test fighters all over the globe. They send people in the homes. They do these things.
But they are on retainer. I don't think USADA's doing COVID-19 testing. So that means whoever's doing the COVID-19 testing is going to be employees or employed somehow by the UFC, which is an additional cost that they may have. Just saying.
All I'm saying is these are Corona times. These are quarantine times. We don't have to play by regular rules. We're flying by the seat of our pants. So let's go ahead and do some things to up the ante a little bit. Again, my point in this is, it may seem cost, prohibitive, adversarial to, right. But when you think about it in real terms, we could have found another fight to replace that Uriah Hall fight.
Perhaps.
We could have.
I don't know. It's just my thoughts, man.
Okay.
Is there testing going on 2 weeks after your fight? Like right now, do we know that any of those fighters from the last 3 weeks tested positive or not?
So for those people who are just listening to the audio version of the podcast, we are shaking our heads no right now. There's none of that.
We don't know what happened to
that we know of.
We don't know what happened to Jacare. I've been searching, I've been scouring. There's no mention of Jacare right now. All right, so my boy could be abducted by aliens right now, and we don't know what's going on. All right,
drop that beat, Ryan.
I'm just saying, man, that Florida, right there in that corridor, they call it Lightning Alley for a reason. Lightning strikes there more than any other place in the entire United States, and it's not too far away from the Bermuda Triangle.
That's not true. That's not true. Lightning does not strike more in Florida than it does anywhere else in the United States.
Hold on. Are we sure about the Lightning Corridor? Have you heard of the Lightning Corridor?
I have not heard of the Lightning Corridor, but I have very good. I know that there are other places that gets more lightning strikes than Florida. There you go. You can go ahead and search that. We're going to keep going with the show. All right.
Keep going with the show.
So here's the thing. The next fight is already, according to Dana White, the next fight is April 30th. It is going to be in Nevada, in Las Vegas, Nevada, in the Apex Event Center. Now, here's the thing about the Apex Event Center. It is a 25-foot octagon, not a 30-foot octagon. So it's a smaller arena than it's a smaller cage than they normally fight in. So the fighters are going to be closer. They're not going to have that same breadth of space to move around, and that's going to benefit some fighters, and it's going to be a detriment to others.
That is a tactical disadvantage. I will have to say there. And look at that! Did I just find out why Florida is the lightning capital of the U.S.? Oh wow, look at that! But anyway, back to my what I was saying before. That a lot of people don't think 5 feet means much. It means a lot. That means that there's going to be it's I kind of like it. Don't get me wrong. I think it's great. We're making them get a little bit closer to each other. So, there's not much space they're going to be able to run with. So, I'm okay with this. I mean, if we can get it down to 10 feet, I'll be good with that too. If we can get it bare knuckle.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
If we can get it open weight, that'd be great.
If we could just get them knives, if we get them knives or swords, maybe some shields, this would be even better.
Oh no, that's the medieval combat stuff that's going on over in Europe. We don't want that here. We just want bare knuckle, open weight, UFC 1, 2, and 3. That's what I want.
So the reason why UFC 1, 2, and 3 were so intense was because of the different in size of the fighters. You were seeing all these different things. There were a lot of rock'em sock'em kind of things, big knockouts, And that's why we were so excited about Jones versus Ngannou, right? Woo. Last week, we were like, that's what we want to see. It's DOA. John Jones is upset. He said even before discussing numbers, the UFC was unwilling to pay more for the Francis fight. They don't want him to move up to heavyweight, according to John Jones. Dana White said that fans would love to see Jones versus Ngannou, but he doesn't see it's going to happen. And Francis Ngannou said the UFC is not willing to make this fight happen because they're not willing to pay the money that the fighters say it's worth. So is this a big fight or is it not?
This is a huge fight, and mark my words, Dana White knows this fight is going to happen. The UFC knows this fight is going to happen. They're going to make it happen. It's just a matter of lining up the UFC's best interests in this fight. And then on top of that, because this fight came from the fighters, it didn't come from the matchmakers themselves. So there's this whole negotiation piece where the fighters believe the fight is worth a lot more than the UFC wants to pay. And so the UFC has to humble both Francis and John, because imagine if they paid them what they want. They're setting a precedent for the rest of the UFC roster. And hey, I can go in here, pick me out a money fight, and y'all got to pay me more than my contract says too.
Exactly. And that's the problem. Well, a couple of things went south on this. First of all, it is an exciting fight. Okay, this is a fight that we as fans would love to see. Fighters would love to see this go down. However, it's something that Uncle Chael said. Okay, you cannot put this out on blast. All right, you must save face when you are doing this. Okay, John Jones putting it out there like he did, that was poor form. Okay, both fighters sitting out there putting it out like it is poor form. And if anything, they forced Dana's hand, and Dana's hand is going to be the one of the smack. One's going to get the backhand, most likely Jones. Okay, and Ngannou's going to get the forehand of it.
I don't think that's safe.
No, it's not.
Don't be trying to smack either one. I mean, you shouldn't try to slap either one, but I don't like your odds trying to slap Francis Ngannou. That dude picked up Shaq, scared Shaq, because Shaq ain't never been that high.
You know what? Shaq 350, 325.
Yeah, and Francis Ngannou's like, that dude was light. Like, wait, what?
Like, I mean, he picked him up like a backpack, and that's not good. Okay, so so basically, Dana's gonna have to force his hand, and I'm afraid that hand force is what's gonna result of that is Dominic Reyes is about to get It's about to get another championship run.
I don't think I disagree with both of you. I think that what it is it's Fight Island. That's a fight they want for Fight Island. No. Trying to book that fight before Fight Island is they need to see that Fight Island's going to work, and then that's how you get them. This is not about money. The UFC has the money. They know it's a big fight.
No, I disagree. I do think this is about money. The UFC wants to put this before a live audience. Think about the gate that's missing right now, man.
Yeah, yes, I agree. This is right.
And on top of that, like Dana said in the first place, it looks like that. Yeah, they may talk about one, but he doesn't think they really want it either. Okay, and I'm inclined to kind of agree with the one. Two, wait, gentlemen. I mean, if they really want to make this fight, Dana would have sat there and said, we're going to make this fight. We're going to set it up for a date. We don't know what the date's going to be. You know, the wording of it all. Like I said, John messed it up by putting it all out on social media.
Well, according to John Jones, he said that they told him that when he moves to heavyweight, they will restructure his contract. So that's what's motivating him to go to heavyweight, is the fact that they're promising him a restructuring of his deal. Now, here's the thing from John Jones's manager, who said that the situation was just like, he says, I don't want to get too much into it, but it's pretty much a case of John wants to fight Francis. He's looking to get compensated for it. And they're like, maybe not right now. It's not going to happen. And so I think that it gives credence to George's point that they can't have fights in front of a live audience. And so the gate that you would be able to make on something like Jones versus Ngannou would be huge. So yeah, you've sold me on that. I absolutely think that this has everything to do with I think this has everything to do with there not being a live audience, and they want to save it for that, because that would be a huge fight where everyone would turn out. People would turn out in droves in bars and things like that. It's almost like that Cowboy Cerrone versus Conor McGregor style of fight. The bigger amount of money is right there. So why would they hold that fight while we're still looking at looking at empty arenas and things like that? You've sold me on that. I completely agree. Speaking of someone who turned down an offer, Mike Tyson got offered $20 million from Bare Knuckle FC. Also, they tried to get him the axe murderer, Wanderlei Silva, as an opponent.
Say his name again, Ryan.
Wanderlei.
Who?
Is it Wanderlei Silva? Is that better? It should be the
yes,
V?
sir.
Yes,
there
sir.
you go.
Yeah, okay. I know that.
Wanderlei Silva.
Paletti here with his Brazilian / Portuguese background.
So yeah, they but he turned it down. The guy who runs David Feldman, who runs Bare Knuckle FC, he said no immediately, but he is not deterred. He said there's still some room here. He's like Ted DiBiase. He's like, everybody's got a price.
Hey, I'm gonna say it like this: Mike Tyson and Wanderlei Silva in the same ring guarantees a ring death. Okay, those two would murder you. That you talk about. If they're willing to do it, I'm willing to watch it. Okay, but make no bones about it. Somebody's coming away with cosmetic surgery. I promise you.
Oh
that.
well, yeah.
They both ugly.
Well,
all right, let's put it out there. They both ugly.
Talking about somebody who came out of the ring with cosmetic surgery, Anthony Smith is still talking about the brutalization that he took at the hands of Glover Teixeira. He's saying that he is not a victim of bad coaching or bad refereeing. He says he put himself in this position. He says that I'm not a victim. That's what people want to. That's what I want people to know. I put myself in this position on purpose. That's all I want people to know. It's not that I don't care that they were upset about it, or that I don't care that they care. I love it. I love the responses that I've gotten. It was hard to watch, and that they love me and they want to see me keep fighting. I love it. I appreciate it. It's humbling. I just don't want it to be this narrative that I'm the victim, because I'm not. He goes on to say, put that on me. Listen, I understand the fan side. I get it. It makes me look crazy. I'm not anti-stopping fights. I'm not against throwing in the towel. I'm not against cornermen stepping in and saying that's enough. I'm just against it for me. I personally would stop fights for people that I care about, that I'm coaching. I would do that. I have no problem stepping in and stopping a fight, and I think that needs to happen more, just not with me. I know it sounds nuts. I can't go there.
It doesn't sound nuts. That's his mentality.
It sounds nuts. It sounds nuts to me.
Okay, it sounds nuts to you. To me, he's made it perfectly clear on what he wants when he wants to happen in the ring. Okay, his corner. He told his corner, "Hey, don't do it," and they didn't do it. So that's when the ref is supposed to say, "No, I'm not having this in my ring." Because he is the ultimate judge. I've said this week. I think I said this last week. I think I said week before last. I have no problem with this mentality, but the judge better be there to jump in and stop that.
So this is my segue into Coach Arjan Carlos Moreno's interview, because of he talked about a lot of things, and so I really encourage you guys to go to our YouTube page and watch the entire hour and 20-minute video where he talks about the history of Muay Thai. He talks about his introduction into the sport and how he became, a fighter and a coach and a referee and now a judge. Like, those are the things that we want to be able to that I thought were fascinating. But the things that he said about fighter safety and the corner taking care of their fighter is what we really need to hear when we hear fighters saying this. Because I think that when at the end of the day, it's not only the ref's responsibility to keep a fighter safe, but it's also the corner's responsibility to keep a fighter safe. And as Coach says, and he'll say in this clip, to save the fighter from himself. And with that, I'd like to introduce you guys or introduce you guys to this interview with Arjan Carlos Moreno. Hello, this is Ryan Smith with Combat Sports Talk, and I am here today with Arjan Carlos Moreno. He is the Muay Thai coach at Oakdale MMA and Merced MMA. He's also the president of the American Muay Thai Association. We've also got George G Money Stallworth here, and he is going to be helping us out with this interview. Coach Arjan, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. Excited.
All right.
Me too, man. Me too. It's been a long time coming, Coach.
So
just to start us off,
yeah,
why don't you give us a little bit of your history and background as a coach, Coach Carlos?
Okay. Well, fighter turned coach years ago, back in the 90s. My first real coaching gig was in 1993 at a no holds barred event. When I had my cousin was actually fighting in it, and that's what got me started. I started coaching Muay Thai and no holds barred back then. After I fought before all that stuff. So, and UFC came out around the same time. It was really close in proximity, and I've been with this game since the beginning. If you
don't mind, go ahead and tell us a little bit about that. How has it been for you? Transitioning from fighter to coach to judging, refereeing, and those things, and some of the gaps and holes you see currently throughout the fight scene in general, not just Muay Thai, but MMA as well.
But that's why I got into it, though. So I wanted, in my career, I feel like, I'm in a point now where I want to keep giving back, not just to my students, but I'm seeing the gaps that's in MMA right now, and I'm seeing the holes that we have, and I feel like that's where I want to be. Because as I get older, let's say I'm 60, dude, how awesome would it be to go up and down states getting paid to sit ringside, cage side, watch fights, and tell them what I think. You know what I mean? Like that's like ultimate. Doesn't pay very well. I mean, they don't pay very much at all, really, for it. But you do it because, the love of the sport. You want it to grow and you want to see it. People, watching these fighters, man, they go on and they lose on the decision, and they don't understand why they lost. Like they're confused. Like, do what? I thought I won that fight. And I think some of that comes down to the coaching and the understanding what's going on during the event, during that fight, and what the judges are seeing. At some point you have to understand that if this Judge Hernandez over here, he's probably a boxing guy, so he's going to be looking for your hands. He's not going to care about your groundwork. And this other guy here, did some wrestling or something, so he's going to be looking at the takedowns. And so it's a matter of, I think the criteria for these judges needs to change. I think one of the things they were doing is they were having people come in with no experience, no martial art background, nothing, and so they would watch the fight and decide who they win because they have no idea what's really going on. They just say, "This is who I think wins. Is this guy?" You know what I mean?
How would the commissions ever allow that to an untrained person who has no skill whatsoever? Like, because what was the rationalization behind that?
They're not biased.
Okay.
They're not biased, and they're just seeing with what their own naked eyes were seeing. And I understand that, and I can see that, and I can appreciate that. I think there was a time for that. Maybe in the beginning, I think the beginning of of this whole transition of MMA, maybe that was a good fit because nobody really knew what's going on. But now we're at a point where I'm a blue belt in jiu-jitsu. I mean, my wife's a black belt. So I've been exposed to all this. My kids wrestle. I'm exposed to all this. And there's other, I think judging should be like a resume you turn in. Like, if you're rounded and you understand it, you've been an MMA coach and you have a history of a little bit of deep. I think that's a better judge that's going to understand, like, okay, so that takedown, and now he's laying on him. Okay, I don't know how important that is. He's not doing any damage. He's just holding him there. And he gets back up, and the guy starts throwing bombs on him. He gets rocked and takes him down again and just lays on him. It's they swing one way, then they swing the other way. The takedowns are the most important thing. Well, what do you do with the takedown? If you don't do anything with that takedown, then that's just like landing a leg kick or a head
Were
kick.
you getting pieced up, and is that the reason why you got taken down?
Yeah, I mean, I just think that I just felt that was my next calling and my next step in my evolution as a person, and what I'm doing is I want to be, honestly, I want to be a UFC judge. That's my ultimate goal, and it's just the steps I need to take to get there.
You're getting guys who are coming up, and they didn't come from a strict Muay Thai background or a strict Jiu-Jitsu background. They trained in a little bit of everything now and evolved as a fighter into that. They are pure mixed martial artists as opposed to a Muay Thai fighter who became an MMA fighter or a Jiu-Jitsu guy who transitioned into MMA. And you're seeing more and more of these guys now. I think like Rory McDonald, a few other guys, in the UFC are names that you could really identify as those types of fighters. And that's where I think this is headed. You were talking about the evolution of the fight game in general.
Yeah, no, 100%. 100%. That's these new fighters are going to have different coaches, more than just one coach. They're going to have an MMA coach who does only MMA stuff and putting this stuff together. They're going to have a jiu-jitsu coach that focuses only on their ground stuff. You're going to have a wrestling coach to help on the takedowns. So you're going to have a boxing coach to help with their hands. You're going to have a Muay Thai coach to help them with the rest of their limbs. And then the MMA coach is the one who puts it all together for them. And that's what a real team of a real MMA fighter should be, is 5 coaches. So if it's 5 coaches, what gym in America has 5 elite coaches that you can go to and get everything in one shot? None. 0. Right? Everybody's got, and then there's sparring, right? Then you got to have good sparring partners.
Good sparring partners, yeah.
I mean, and what do most men and women who fight, what do they want the most of? What's the funnest for them? Sparring. It's not about getting their technique better. They think they need to get more sparring in order to get there, and that's what leads into damage. Because the more sparring you get, the more damage you take, and the more damage you take, you could be hurt before you even go into the fight. You could have brain issues going on before you go, and you could have concussion from sparring. And now you're going to go in a fight and get knocked out in the first round. And they think that guy is great, but what they don't know is that, you were seeing stars 2 weeks ago in your last hard training camp, and these are the challenges that we have.
So speaking of sparring, I kind of want to pivot over into what you were just talking about, CTE and brain trauma.
Yeah.
In your experience as a coach, how prevalent is it?
It's everywhere. It's everywhere. I mean, back in, I think it was 2001, I had a fighter fighting, and we fought Bobby Southworth. You know who he is. He was an Ultimate Fighter at one time. And I think we were fighting a 3-round fight. And in the second round, he came back to the corner, and I looked in his eyes, and it was just glazed over. And I was trying to talk to him, and he wasn't listening, and I just waved it off. I go, we're done. I'm not sending him back out there to get knocked out, to get seriously hurt. He was already too much for him. And I think there's a disconnect between wanting to win so bad and wanting to protect that human, that person, that friend, that student, protect them from themselves. Because I can tell you, a lot of these fighters say, well, don't ever stop it, coach. Don't stop. Just let it go. Let it go. If you care about somebody, that's really hard to do. It's really hard to do. Like, it was really hard for me to watch them not throw the towel in that last fight. Like, as a coach, I'm like, dude, when he came to the corner and you told him to do a Enzo Gari, bro, that's a wrap, man. He wasn't doing anything. He wasn't improving what he was doing. You should have, as a coach, and this is the tough part, right? Because then if you step in as a coach and call the fight off, the fighter's going to be mad at you, and maybe he leaves you now. I would have won that fight, but you called it, so I'm going somewhere else because you don't care about me. When the reality is just the opposite. I cared so much about you that I realized where this is going. Yes, there's always that one shot, but you guys both know from watching that fight that we just saw, the chances of him knocking the other guy out was probably less than 1% at this point. He had nothing on his hands, nothing on his legs. He had no strength left. He was at a point where he's only taking damage now. And how long do you let somebody go taking damage? You know, in amateurs, they stop it a lot faster, right? As soon as somebody gets rocked, they stop it. You know, and in boxing and kickboxing, if you get knocked down, you get a standing 8 count. Well, MMA doesn't do that. MMA lets it go. You know, and I don't know if a standing count should be thought about, maybe. You know, but you know, in MMA, it's like, well, if he gets hurt and they jump on him and go for a choke or something, or you know, try to submit him, then it's you know, this is where the challenges are for the CTE stuff, because these are 4-ounce gloves they're using, you know,
right?
And we won't know really the effect of all these fighters until for another 5 or 10 years.
That goes into the next thing I want to ask you about. Was a lot of times people, we expect to see these blatant effects after a fighter who's suffering from CTE or anything like that, but very often it's not. You don't get to see what's really going on behind the scenes. Can you talk about maybe some of the things that fighters go through in dealing with that after, you know, when the lights are off, after everybody's left the ring, after everybody's left the cage and they're at home? You know, what kind of things do they go through?
I have a close friend who was a student who got knocked out at an event that we won 2 belts in that event. And we had 3 fighters there. We won 2 belts, and he got knocked out. Backstage, while the show's still going on, he's asking me, what time do I go up? When do I go up? And I'm like, dude, it's over with. And about 2 seconds later, hey, do I need to get ready? What time do I got to go up? And I'm like, dude, fight's over. We're done. And I told him, you got knocked out. He's like, I got knocked out. Oh, okay. I feel okay. I was like, okay. Hey, when do I go up? Am I going up soon? I'm like, their brain becomes in this loop, you know, and it's a scary thing to see somebody you care about when their head's being loopy. And this is the combat sport we're in, right? We all know this, so just accept this, you know. But you know, I had taken him to the hospital, and then, you know, 3 hours later he seems normal again. And now he don't remember anything that happened. He don't remember the fight at all. It's a black spot that they have in their memory for the rest of their lives. And what I have noticed is that when somebody has gotten knocked out and their brain because their brain hits the other wall inside their skull, right? That's where the concussions come from. So once that has been done, they are more susceptible to get knocked out again. And once you've had a few, man, it's just like you barely touch the guy, and because there's nothing holding together. It's been damaged. He's damaged now. You know, look at Overeem we just saw. Overeem, I grew up watching Overeem, man. He was the Demolition Man in Pride, and he was freaking dude, I love that guy. He was a beast. His knees were killing people back in the day, right? He got touched by a guy who supposedly hits pretty hard, okay, but he barely got touched. And you saw what happened to him. And it wasn't just this fight. You watched the fight before, he got touched. And the fight before that, he got touched. Marco Krokop, no different. You know, once they've had a concussion like this, they're more susceptible. And once they've had 2 or 3, you're going to start seeing these fighters, you know, down the road. You know, we like Chuck Liddell, but it's hard to listen to him talk nowadays, right? You hear him talk, and it's sad and scary at times, where at some points he seems normal, and then the other points it seems like, I don't understand what you're saying, you know. And I think we're going to find out here in the next, you know, 6 to 10 years, the real repercussions that has happened from all these people getting concussions, that, you know, in between fights, because there's been plenty of times I've been watching him fight and the camera zooms in to listen to the corner talk, and I can see by looking at the fighter in his eyes that he's already had a concussion. Mm-hmm. His eyes are glazed to a point where, you know, he's just staring at the coach. He's not interacting with the coach, and he's just ready to go, because that's what fighters do, man. They go. That's all they know. That's what they're there for. And you know, it's going to be interesting, you know, to see how our sport is going to evolve in the next, you know, 10 years with this stuff. Because if you look at NFL and you look at all the things they start putting into place now because of concussions, MMA is going to go through the same thing, man. We're going to have the same issues, because what do they have when they're done? What do these fighters have?
And there you have it. What a wonderful interview with Coach Carlos. Thank you so much for the time that you gave us and all of the insight that you gave. It was just an amazing hour and a half that he gave us. What a wonderful gift that was.
Indeed. I learned so much, and he started back there when it was back there in the very genesis of MMA. So he, like I say, he knows those hardcore guys like Hodger and Henzo and Hoist, and God forbid if he knows Hickson. He did mention they did know Dan Severn. Those guys right there are not those. Yeah, those are manly men. Yeah.
Something I learned in talking to him was how it was referred to back then is NHB, no
NHB.
holds barred.
Yes.
Yeah, I wasn't familiar with that, man.
Believe it or not, the phrase was coined in was it King of the Cage 6 back in '96, I believe.
I decided not to dispute anything you say since you got me on the lightning strike, so I'm just gonna yes, sir. You are
It's
the
okay.
history book. You are the encyclopedia of knowledge. So I'm not.
Ryan, you're dealing with a tech guy. He could have immediately just gone out and created a website and trolled you with it just that quick.
No,
So
no, because I am also a tech guy, which means that I have gone and done my independent research on my own as well and verified that indeed yeah, there it is. Florida is the highest frequency of lightning in the United States. I searched for it myself. So
You could just go to florida.gov.
I bow
and it will
down.
show you.
You got me, sir.
That's cool. That's cool.
Getting back to the interview, the thing that it really hit me right in the heart listening to him talk about seeing the fighters when their eyes are glazed and just saying no more. Sending a fighter out there when you know that his odds of winning, your fighter, what the odds are, that just sending your fighter out there when they're hurt and they're damaged and they're not going to win the fight, continuing the fight just seems like insult to injury at that point. And it made me feel good to know that there are people who put the health and safety of their friends first. That it goes beyond just the winning and the losing and the machismo that comes along with being a fighter, that there's something bigger than that. And, one of the things that if you go and watch the long form interview, he talks about how Muay Thai in specific terms has this tradition and these these familial things that you do where you're not just a student anymore, you're a part of the family. And the question becomes, could you keep sending your child out into a ring after you know that he's been rocked, that he is now concussed, that he is no longer able to defend himself, yet the fight is still going on? And if you couldn't send your child out, how could you then send your student out there? And that I think is I'm paraphrasing, but it hit me emotionally, and you can tell that it did. So, thank you to Coach for spending that time. All right. Fight Island update.
Ryan, before you go there, I saw something on the run sheet. Maybe we just hadn't got to it yet, but I just want to check and make sure. Mike Perry.
Yeah, it is on the run sheet. I was gonna circle back around, but since you brought it up, let's talk about it. Mike Perry.
While we're talking about brain damage.
Yeah, that was going to be my segue, by the way. But so I'm glad you brought it up. Mike Perry said he is done with coaches. He only wants his girlfriend and maybe her friend in his corner for his next fight.
And there's actual video of this, people. It's not hard to find. And you could just, what's this boy problem? Okay,
CTE.
honestly, what? Yeah, CTE. What CTE? This dude is. Love him, hate him, or laugh at him. This is where it becomes dangerous. And I'm for one. Okay, you got to have some sort of coach in your corner that can see the things that you don't see while you're in the middle of it. You want to sit there.
What I think Mike is saying, though, John, is that he hasn't had that. Coaches have failed him to some degree, or something to that effect, is what I gather the point he's making. So and he feels like he's better off by himself as a result.
So that sounds like that he is angry because he is angry at his performance, and he's finding somebody to blame, which is something that that Arjan Carlos was talking about. That that if you feel like your coach didn't do what you wanted for them, and I'm paraphrasing at this point, you didn't do what you wanted for them, so I'm just going to leave you. And I think that can be, in certain cases, there are coaches out there that do that. I could think of a couple of them right now, but I won't mention names. But for the most part, most coaches that I've seen Mike Perry with, he was with Greg Jackson at one point. I don't see a problem with that. I don't see Greg Jackson doing dirty. Never mind.
Hey,
I'll back down.
Listen, but the fact is that when he was with Greg Jackson, he was winning.
Yes,
I don't know what he's done since then, but the fact is that Mike Perry's style of fighting it's not super complex, or at least it doesn't look complex to me. I mean, he's really going in there to try to knock somebody's heads off. And the thing is that perhaps I would love to hear what his coaches have to say and what the game plans are when he goes into these fights, because the amount of damage that Mike Perry takes in a fight. I mean, remember when his nose was like smashed down and over to the side, and yet he was still fighting and still trying to knock people's heads off? Like it's just not the style of fighting that really succeeds in today's MMA world. And it's that kind of bully, grimy kind of fighting that Diego Sanchez is known for. It's the same style of fighting that, some of these other fighters are known for. And now we are, as Coach said, multiple years removed from some of these big wars. And we're starting to see the impact of those in the decision-making that people like Diego Sanchez, who's now got one guy in his corner. Now you've got someone like Mike Perry, who wants his girlfriend, who, maybe she has, a steep background in MMA or some type of martial arts, but I don't think so. So it's a destructive type thing. It's a red flag that we need to start paying attention to, and the UFC really needs to start thinking through what is their long-term strategy for taking care of these fighters who has given the UFC literally their lives, their best part of their lives, for the success of the sport.
This actually reminds me of Big Country. Roy Nelson, when he first showed up on The Ultimate Fighter, he had no coach, but he had phenomenal talent. Come to find out, he had an altercation with the Lions Den, which was a group that was being led by Ken Shamrock, one of the first mixed martial art clubs, and he just had a falling out with him. He said the same thing that Platinum Mike Perry was. Excuse me. He eventually did get with the group, with the team, and I think it was ATT they got with, and he started flourishing. And I think what Mike Perry needs to do is saying, just shop around, try and find a team, get with somebody. Don't do this on your own, because Roy Nelson was just a few years. If he didn't make it in the Ultimate Fighter, he probably would be on regional circuits right now, if even fighting. So, Mike Perry, if you see this out in the ether somewhere, find a coach. Find a real group. All right, brother. I want to see you be at your best. Find a real coach or a real crew to run with. Your girlfriend is not going to... No, don't do that. Unless your girlfriend is Cynthia Rothrock or Chris Cyborg, do not do that, okay? That's all I got to say about it.
George?
Speaking as a coach, man, Mike, go out there and do this on your own and see how that works out for you. You're saying that you don't need a coach, you don't need someone game planning. Sounds like you don't want a team either. So who are your sparring partners going to be? Who's going to hold mitts for you? You know what I'm saying? Who's going to do the things that you're saying you don't need done? Vice versa. You're not going to have somebody in your corner there to stop it when things go too far. And Mike, we've seen it with you already. We've seen fights where you walk away damaged, and had you had someone in there who could give you proper guidance, they may have saved you from some of that damage. We just had Carlos on talking about this, man. CTE is real. The reason Anthony Smith is talking the way he's talking right now, I can't help but think, is CTE a factor? Mike Perry, is CTE a factor?
Diego Sanchez.
That's not even a question of whether or not CTE is a factor. John Jones, this erratic behavior coming from guys, is CTE a factor? Penn. And another one, man. So, by all means, guys can do what they want. If you want to walk in there without a coach, bless you, wish you well. The only thing I can think is you're making an excuse for why you're not a title contender right now.
Mm-hmm. That's real.
Without a coach, what you're really saying is, I'm going to be a journeyman.
So
that's real.
I don't know on which coast Mike Perry's based, but if he's over in the California area, Coach Carlos said, send him to me. Send him to me. There it is. Go see Coach Carlos. He'll tighten you up real quick.
Holla at our boy. He'll get you straight.
All right. So Fight Island update. It's real. Dana White says it's going to be ready by June. We're just a few days away from that. He said in July he's going to spend an entire month in July at Fight Island. So it's real. I hope it's real. Let me just say it that way. I'm saying it's real. I hope it's real.
I think I called it when I said that International Fight Week was going to happen on that island. I will take credit for that now.
That's the goal. That's definitely the goal. There's crazy stuff coming out about what fight's going to look like on International Fight Week, but we're going to talk about one of those fights in just a bit. Henry Cejudo is out. They have scrubbed his name from the title on the website at the UFC. That it is now a blank space where his name used to be over the bantamweight division. It is now a vacant title. So Henry Cejudo left. He said, I'm happy with my career. I'm done with the sport. I want to walk away. I want to enjoy myself. I'm 33 years old. It's interesting. This all coincided with the fact that there was a female on this planet who was willing to look beyond the king of cringe. And that was enough for him. He was like, if she's willing to stick with me through this, she's the one. I'm paraphrasing though. He said, since I was 11 years old, I've sacrificed my whole life to get where I'm at today, and I'm not going to let anybody take that from me. So I'm retiring tonight. I'm 33 years old. I'm happy with my career. Uncle Dana, I want to say thank you for everything. You're the man. That's what he said in the ring after the fight. His coach, who originally said, I don't think he's done, his coach came back a few weeks later and said, I think he's done. So I think this is it. The last sign that Henry Cejudo is done is what? They take him out of the USADA pool.
Right.
Until they take him out of the USADA pool, he's not really done.
If anything, this sounds like the UFC was like, oh, I'm glad he's gone. Wipe him off. That's what it sounds like to me. Because I think they're supposed to take you out of the pool first, and then, or at least do it like one right at the same time, almost simultaneously.
Mm-hmm.
But they scrubbed him quick.
Yeah, it was quick. Deuces.
Yeah.
But I think that's the thing is because I think that the UFC does the lighter weight classes kind of dirty anyway, though, right?
Yeah.
But. At the same time, he talked about it, but he didn't really give that heads up to Dana White that he was going to do that either. It would have been a kind of a common courtesy to tell the president of the promotion where you fight that you plan on retiring after this fight, win or lose.
And not just announce it on live.
Yeah.
Live on their venue on top of that.
People like Dana White don't like surprises.
That's like slapping Dana in the face,
It is, and so I don't blame them for being like, okay, if you're really done, then your name doesn't exist anymore. We're gonna move forward. We're gonna find us a new champion. Peter Yan versus somebody, as Dana White said. Speaking of champions, whenever we're talking about champions, that one 4-letter word comes up. And it's gotten even worse because of this whole Last Dance Michael Jordan documentary, 10-part documentary. Everybody wants to talk about the GOAT of something. And so you know, I feel like the GOAT of basketball has been decided. We can all kind of agree. You know, there's one or two names that you're going to put in the GOAT of boxing. Maybe hockey, you've got a GOAT. But MMA is still very much disputed. And one Conor McGregor decided that he was going to give his list of who the GOAT is. Do y'all want to hear that? Did y'all see it?
I saw it. Yeah, go ahead. Throw it out there.
The GOAT, number one's GOAT, according to Conor McGregor, is Anderson Silva. Tied for number one, or a very close number two, is Conor McGregor. Number three is George St. Pierre. Number four, or perhaps tied for number three, is Johnny Bones Jones. Not listed, Mighty Mouse, who says he had limited competition and he lost his fight against Dominic Cruz, which is revisionist history because he fought Dominic Cruz before he won the 125-pound title, and he was a part-time fighter when he fought for the title. That's how great Demetrius Johnson is. But you know I'm a fan. Person he did not put on the list, 28-0, Khabib Nurmagomedov. So I feel like Conor McGregor's list of GOATs is a bit skewed.
Just a bit.
You don't have Khabib Nurmagomedov.
I like that he put points in to make his to show his reasoning behind it, though. Like some of the points that he makes, I do like where he was going, other than the fact that he really put himself at tied for number one, right? People did not like it. Namely, one Michael the Count Bisping, where Conor McGregor slighted him a couple of times, calling him one-eyed Michael Bisping. Michael Bisping responded, "Well, this one-eyed fighter you speak of actually beat your number one, and he defended his belt, so your logic doesn't actually hold up. So anyway, have a good day. Facts." John Jones actually responded. And John Jones said, "And still, try that one first, lad." Because Conor McGregor, he's won 2 titles, but he's never defended the UFC title. So how are you going to be the GOAT when you've never even defended a title? And there's fighters all around you on that list that you have that have defended the title over and over and over again. Every single one of those people on that list defended the title at least like 7 or 8 times, maybe even more. I know, what is it, 10 for Anderson Silva? You know, something like that. John Jones doesn't have consecutive, but he's got like 13 title defenses or 13 title fights, something like that.
14 title defenses for John Jones. GSP has 13, and
I think it's title fights.
You know,
but then again, I'm not going to dispute you, sir, because I was wrong.
It's okay.
I have known to been wrong, and you have proven me. Lightning strikes. I don't want lightning to strike twice.
Something like that, though. You might be right in titled fights. Or titled fights. Yeah.
Conor. Since we're on Conor, Conor has a shot though at history, because remember, the fight that we really wanted to see was Kamaru Usman versus Jorge Masvidal. But Jorge Masvidal has started talking trash about running things back with Nate Diaz. And so, with no one to fight, Ali Abdelaziz is like, "Hey, Conor, do you want a shot at the 170 title?" Now, I don't know if this is real, but that could be the fight. That could be the title fight that you see at International Fight Week.
That would be the craziest thing. That's the craziest lob I've ever heard. Okay, you don't set your boy up like that unless you absolutely know your boy is gonna run through. All right,
man. Kamaru Usman is a 170 guy. That means he cuts to 170.
Exactly.
Conor maybe walks around at 175.
But it's the whole fact that
he gonna get broke. That he gonna get broke.
I don't know. I can say that anymore.
He's going to get broken.
I thought Justin was going to be, crying about how he got his butt kicked, but Justin didn't get his butt kicked.
But Justin is a 155er fighting
Right,
a
they fight in the
155er.
same weight division.
I'm just saying.
Connor's fought at 170, but he fought 155ers who were at 170.
Right. He didn't fight a train.
Kamaru Usman probably walks around at 212 pounds, naked and wet.
My point being is, I don't want this massive juggernaut that is Kamaru Usman go in there and fight Conor, and Conor beats him. Because not only do I have to hear him scream proper 12 and I'm the triple C, okay, but he's never going to defend that title and throws the welterweight division into all sorts of disarray again.
Well, I get what you're saying, but the likelihood of that fight is not very likely. The UFC would probably love to make that fight, but I don't really see that as the money style fight, other than the fact that it's an opportunity for Conor to win 3 belts. There's not really a history of drama between Kamaru and Conor. There is between Ali Abdelaziz. Mm-hmm. The real fight we all know is going to be a rematch with Khabib at some point. That's going to be the money fight. I'm guessing Ali is just chomping at the bit because he likes to step up for his fighters, and so as a do-over for Khabib, or not a do-over, but as a shout out for Khabib because he can't fight right now. He's like, well, you know what? I got my 170 champ over here. Why don't you take a crack at him, Conor McNuggets?
I don't know.
He's doing such a Cobra Kai right now. It's not even funny.
But all I know is that this is not a fight that Conor wants. It can't be. He can talk as much smack as he wants about being able to go up to 170, but there's not a legitimate. It's not a legitimate thing. He would get broken. So anyway, so there we go. June 13th. Couple of quick hits. June 13th. Babyface Benoit, Ryan Benoit, is on the card for June 13th. Going to be facing Tyson Nam. Now, I know it as Benoit, but I know that it's not pronounced that way. But he's a hometown hero for us. So shout out to Ryan Benoit. To get on that card, we're going to be rooting for you June 13th.
You didn't know? Ryan's one of my training partners. He's a teammate of mine over at Saxon's. I see Ryan on a regular basis. We were just at practice all last week.
All right.
Him prepping for these fights that are coming up. He's been talking about it with us for a minute, so I'm very excited for this fight. I'm hoping these guys come out and put on a great show. This is a 125-pound fight, so these guys love to get with it real quick, and the action is thick in the 125 division. So, not only that, 125 belt is up for grabs. So this is a chance for Ryan to move up and place himself as a real contender in that division. So we'll see what happens, man.
All right. Well, we'll be rooting for him for sure. Once we get closer to that fight, we'll definitely make that pick for sure. Show our solidarity behind him. Tai Chi Master gets starched. Have you seen the video?
I haven't seen this, man.
I thought this was a recycle, man.
I thought it was a recycle too, but no, it's not the same. There's a famous Chinese MMA fighter who's going around basically debunking all of the Chinese martial art grandmasters and embarrassing them, and so much that in China there's something called your social capital. There's a rating that you get, and as you do things that are not respected by the government or things like that, then you lose your rating and you lose access to resources in the society. His rating is so low he can't travel in public transportation. But this isn't the guy this isn't the guy in the video. It's kind of like a hobbyist. It says a hobbyist. So basically a weekend warrior who trains in some type of a martial art fights this Tai Chi grandmaster. It's not pretty. Dude gets knocked out, and he is light as a feather, stiff as a board.
See, my problem with this is that we have a guy that's 20 years, that's he's 69, and he says at least 20 years. He's in his 40s and his 30s. Why can I not get a Tai Chi master in his 40s, or at least a Tai Chi practitioner that is the same age as as his opponent, and let them go for it? And then if he gets starched, I'm okay.
One, because the 30-year-old Tai Chi practitioner is not the one out there boasting, saying that he can stop a bullet with his 2 fingers.
Hold on, man.
You get what I'm saying? These guys are debunking these martial artists who are out there making these exuberant claims, and that really bring, I guess, a bad light on traditional martial arts. We've all seen it before, man. Hell, you probably met some of these guys back in the day when you were younger yourself. These guys who walked around with the karate gis on and their black belts showing things or whatever, and probably only trained for 3 months. Or, at some taekwondo school and they got their black belt in, 2 days, or whatever the case may be, man. We don't get me wrong. I'm sad to see stuff like this go up on video. Yeah. But we all know there's this Instagram account called McDojo Life or something to that effect. Yeah. And we see it on display there all the time, man. Don't get me wrong. I have the greatest respect for martial artists in general, all around, no matter what martial art you practice, because I know what it's like to go through and put yourself through a regimen that is required to become a specialist at whatever martial art you're in. But vice versa. Don't take, just because you become I guess, adept at whatever that martial art is, and take it to the next level and start spitting out fake stuff. How you can stop bullets, or, you can take down any MMA fighter, or your martial art is so much better than any other martial art out there. Because I promise you, there's somebody in your weight division, somebody at your skill level, who will make you eat those words.
So Juan Wimbles said, Tai Chi Master had a bad day. He's ready now. I don't think he could ever be as ready. I was watching it. He was never ready. He was never ready. He ain't never gonna be ready. No.
Not tomorrow.
He wasn't ready.
He wasn't ready.
He needs some milk. Is that what he needs?
He needs a coach in his corner telling him, "Don't do this." This is for you, Mike Perry. Don't be a 69-year-old Tai Chi coach, the Tai Chi master. You're gonna get starched. UFC 250 preview. Amanda Nunes versus Felicia Spencer. They've announced the fights on the card. They do not have the order yet, but there's a lot of people bad-mouthing this card. The UFC put a lot of their greatest fighters on that week of fighting. This is kind of that transition card where you've got a lot of fighters that we as MMA fans like to see, but it doesn't have the broad appeal for people who are more casual fans of the sport. But going through the list real quick, Amanda Nunes versus Felicia Spencer are the headliners. Looks like the co-main event is going to be Rafael Assunção versus Cody Garbrandt, which I'm glad to see Cody's coming back. I think he's going down a weight class though. Aljamain Sterling versus Corey Sandhagen. That should be a #1 title eliminator fight right there. Jussier Formega versus Alex Perez. Neil Magny's back against Anthony Rocco Martin. Sugar Sean O'Malley versus Eddie Wineland. Haven't heard that name in a long time.
I know. That's what I was looking at too. I'm like, I will watch that fight. I will personally watch that fight.
The Battle of the Afros. Alex Caceres versus Chase Hooper. Chase Hooper, you might remember, is that young up-and-coming fighter who looked like he's a 125-pound beanpole with a afro choking folks out. Keep your eye on Chase Hooper. That guy, Chase Hooper. That's a guy to watch. Alonzo Menefield versus Devin Clark. Ian Heinisch versus Gerald Mearshart. And Charles Bird versus Maki Pilato. So that's 250, but we got a fight card coming up this weekend.
Oh, do we?
UFC on ESPN 9, Woodley versus Burns. This is the fight card. All right, Dana White promised us that we were going to have a fight card on May 30th. May 30th is this weekend. It's going to be at the UFC Apex in Las Vegas, Nevada. For UFC on ESPN 9, Woodley versus Burns. There are 5 fights on the card. Mackenzie Dern versus Hannah Cyphers. Roosevelt Roberts versus Brock Weaver. Someone you may know, George. Kevin Holland versus Daniel Rodriguez. Blagoy Ivanov versus Augusto Sakai, and then the main event of the evening, Tyron Woodley versus Gilbert Burns. Let's make 2 picks. Got to make the pick for Kevin Holland. He's a hometown hero. Let's go ahead and make that pick. Who you got, George? Kevin Holland versus Daniel Rodriguez.
I'm going with my man Kevin, man. You know, he's doing like what is this, a 2-week, 3-week turnaround on this fight? He just fought on the last set of fights.
He sure did.
So, hey, go get it, man. I think he had the fight was 40 seconds?
40-something seconds, yeah.
Yeah, so quick turnaround for Kevin, man. Absolutely, go get it.
All right, John.
Hey, they said fighters that stay fighting and stay healthy with quick turnarounds like that, they usually win. Kevin Holland, good luck, man.
All right, well, you know, we are all behind you, Kevin Holland. I got you as well.
Speaking of Kevin, right, so he's fighting this one at 170. You know, he actually came into the UFC at 185. He fought Thiago Santos.
Wow.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
And gave him problems, too.
Yeah, that was a late fight replacement, too, wasn't it?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Yes, that's right. No, what was it, Thiago Santos? I thought it was 205.
Yes. He fought Thiago Santos.
That's crazy. Maheta.
I think he fought him at 185.
Okay, it may be 185, but still, that wasn't an easy fight.
Yeah.
For Santos.
No, it was not an easy fight. Santos said that Kevin was talking to him while he, I think they were on the ground, and Thiago was throwing punches at him, and he said Kevin was talking to him, saying stuff like, "Don't hit me so hard, man," and then he would throw an elbow at him. Kevin is known for talking during his fights, man.
I can appreciate a fighter like that. I really can.
All right, let's make our main event pick. Tyron Woodley versus Gilbert Burns. John, who you got?
I'm going to go with Tyron Woodley. He's talked the game. It's time for him to walk the game now.
George?
Man, I don't know, John.
Hey, man, you talk this much. You talk as much as you have for as long as you have. You better go in that ring and like do a one-hitter quitter. All right, for real.
Gilbert Burns. Is a very, very game opponent, man.
Oh, I know. He's very, very game. I know.
And not only that, Tyron's coming off of a loss to Kamaru. If I was Tyron's coach, if I was Duke and whoever else is in Tyron's corner right now, I'd be like, can we get a tune-up fight somewhere? You know, can we fight, somebody who,
Because Tyron already
Can we fight somebody else coming off of a loss at least?
Tyron already said it. I'll fight anybody. Okay, that was just a bad night. I don't know who that cat is. So I'm coming back. I'm fighting Caliber.
No.
And he fought apparently this Caliber is 357. All right, so, it is what it is, homie. Okay.
When I saw this, I was like, I like Tyron Woodley. I don't have anything bad to say about his fighting ability, but Gilbert Burns is Damian Maia if Damian Maia could strike.
Yeah.
Yes.
Who does Vegas have as the odds winner?
I don't have the odds in front of me. I'm sure they have Tyron Woodley because Tyron Woodley is a former champ, and all of these kind of things. He's got the five round experience and all that kind of stuff. Gilbert Burns is a dynamic fighter. He can take this fight to the ground. He can take it standing up. I think the diversity of what he can do is going to give Tyron Woodley some fits. I got Gilbert Burns in this fight.
I'd probably roll with Gilbert as well, man. We're seeing this all throughout MMA, man. It's almost like a changing of the guard. There are these guys just on the cusp of, they're not too old or anything like that. They're still in their primes, but we're seeing these new fighters who have come along, and they didn't just train in one art and then transition into MMA. These guys came up as total mixed martial artists from day one. They were training wrestling, jiu-jitsu, boxing, Muay Thai, and any other martial art that they may have in their background. And it has completely revolutionized what we see in MMA today.
And you know who started that trend, right?
Rory McDonald is my favorite one. I'm sure there were some others as well.
Yeah, but and it works. I mean, this is the evolution. We have a lot of great champions to thank for doing that. And so now, I mean, I've lost. I think the last of the old guard that I can think of is John Jones, and John Jones is starting to run a little scared. Let's put it out there. And just after looking at verdict, it looks like that Tyron Woodley is the favorite right now. It's a 150. Gilbert Burns is a 350 underdog.
That's pretty big. It's 3-1. Yeah. So
yeah.
I like them odds.
There's gonna be a lot of money on those Gilbert bets.
Somebody getting paid.
I like that. But then again, don't listen to me because I have known to been wrong about picking fights. So, but George said so. It's probably true. Anyway,
I said it. This one I'm going with. I've just seen the trend lately, man. Mm-hmm. A lot of our fighters who, they're not over the hill by no means, but they're at that point in their careers where there really is a changing of the guard coming through. And you have to recognize that and realize what's taking place. Look through all your champions in divisions right now, man. And you've seen all these. Henry Cejudo. Mm-hmm. 145 is Volkanovski now. Mm-hmm. 155 is Khabib. I wouldn't call him necessarily one of the newer guys. But, okay. 170 right now is Kamaru, definitely. 185 right now.
Izzy.
Yeah. Izzy. It's all throughout here, man. John Jones is still at 205. That's understandable. And our heavyweight champ right now is Stipe. But look at who you got sitting in the win. Francis Ngannou. Yes. Wakanda forever.
Oh no, let's not.
This is your cultural awareness moment.
Oh my God,
I can't do it. If Gletcher was here, he could do it, but I tried. So yeah, I mean, there seems to be a changing of the guard. Perhaps it's not 2020, perhaps it's 2021 when we see the full shift of fighters to this new breed of fighter. Because the thing is that, the evolution of the sport, I think, is gaining momentum such that now it's harder to stay at the top of your game for longer because there's more people who can do what you do. John Jones used to be head and shoulders above everybody. Now he's only up to his ears, Yeah. So in a year's time, it may not be Dominic Reyes. It may be the guy who comes after Dominic Reyes. But that's going to be, the person that John Jones is not going to be able to respond to. That's the person, Gilbert Burns may be the guy that gives Kamaru Usman his first loss of a round. He may be the first person to beat Kamaru Usman. So it's coming, and that's what makes this sport exciting. And for people who are just looking and dipping your toe, this is a great time to start getting into a sport like this because we are seeing these new fighters that we don't know, like Sugar Sean O'Malley, who's got a lot of excitement coming up. He is going to be one of those new names that could be the next title holder. He could be the next Conor McGregor. We don't know. It's worth watching. Follow us on social media. On Instagram, I'm at Combat Sports Talk.
I'm at Keys to Victory, and that's Keys with the ES.
At Darkside_MMA_ on Instagram for me.
You can find everything on our website at www.combatsportstalk.com. If you were interested in the interview with Arjan Carlos Moreno, the entire interview will be posted on our website tomorrow, but you can go to YouTube today and see the rest of the interview. It was a phenomenal interview. A shout out to MMA Junkie, MMA Fighting, MMA Mania, Bloody Elbow, and the Intelligent Defense Discussion Group on Facebook. That's where we get a lot of our headlines and a lot of the discussions that we have here start over there. And all the other sites providing us the stories that we use on the show. Once again, our gratitude goes out to Coach Carlos Moreno. And on behalf of John Keys, and George Stallworth, I'm Ryan Smith, reminding you to keep your hands up, your chin tucked, and throw bombs. We'll catch you next time.